Okay, just a quick one this evening. Just on the subject of Millennial, the Great Griftathon, the annual festival of chat, festival of grift, festival of active measures that Millennial Woes facilitates and gets paid very well for. I mean, people claim this. I don't really know how they'd know, but people have stated elsewhere, just repeating what I've read, that he's allegedly received £40,000 for the last one. I can only imagine that's true because I don't know how else he can live realistically. Well, one thing he did get, absolutely, was one Ethereum for 2024's Griftathon's NFT. One Ethereum. That is £3,000. He received £3,000 for an NFT. I don't know what it is. It's like a picture of him in his fucking bathrobe or something. Like, I don't know. Whatever floats your boat, I suppose. But that is a lot of money. Although perhaps not. Perhaps it's not a lot of money in the world of a Russian media observation unit, which funds various figures around the, periphery of the far right, the far left, the far up, the far down, and all the rest of it in their, key demographics, and which is what they do, what they've spoken about doing for, 40 years, 50 years, openly. Again, no secret. Dugin said in 1997, the new right is just a project, we are its architects. Quite clearly, quite categorically, they've told you this over and over again. This is what we do. We fund, quote unquote, kind of extreme or dissident fringe political groups to demoralize. Explicitly, they use that term, which is very interesting, certainly when you talk about the likes of Morgoth and all the rest of them, to demoralize and to kind of amp up and spurg out people in enemy countries. To sort of, eat away at the fabric. 0 seats, all the rest of it. Textbook. Anyway, moving on. He got £3,000 for that. Now, what's interesting is he posted on January 2nd. He got that money on January the 30th. That was, December the 30th. That was when the bidding closed. So that was when the bidding closed and someone sent an Ethereum, £3,000 to him for this NFT. Now, what's interesting is 3 days later, on January the 2nd, Millennial Woes, having received one Ethereum, £3,000 for this NFT, is having to go on Millenniyule and post, asking for people to get in touch with him. Now, he asked for the person who bought the 2023 NFT to get in touch with. So this is someone who's bought the NFT a year ago. 369 days or something like that at that point. 368 days that would go. So 368 days someone paid, according to this OpenSea document, $201 for an NFT from Millennial Woes and never asked for it. So they've bought this NFT, which, if you believe the Cinderella story of these NFTs, which would be foolish, I would say, it's like, it's a great memento. You presumably think, wow, this is gonna be worth a fortune in 10 years. When Millennial Woes is unearthed by the greater public, and they say, oh my God, this great thought leader, this great genius of the written word, how could they have cruelly spurned him in such a manner? Which is what he thinks is going to happen in the future. This is going to be a great investment. It's going to be worth £10,000 down the line. That is the Cinderella story of the NFT. But they never even get in touch with him and say, can I have my NFT, please, mate? So the guy from 2023 gave him $200 for an NFT, never asked for it. The guy who spent £3,000, $4,000 on December the 30th, never got in touch with him and said, where's my NFT, please? This is very suspicious. If you're just a Millenniyule enthusiast, a Millennial Woes fanboy, a parasocial boy, you're gonna want your NFT. You're gonna want your trinket. This is a great thing for you. You've saved up all year for this NFT, or is it a Russian media observation unit, which is just fund him, give him money. He's promoted Red Ice, he's promoted Amrem, he's promoted Morgoth, He's promoted all these he's promoted Traditional Britain Group. He's promoted UK Column. These are all people that appear every year on his show. And many, many, many more. So, yeah, here's some money. Here you go. They don't give a fuck. Do you know what I mean? You think Vladislav in fucking St. Petersburg gives a fuck about his like choo-choo train NFT? No, it's just like, oh, he's on my spreadsheet. Yeah, is there a tick on him? Yeah, he's on message. Okay, fund, bang. That's all it is. Oh, is he still ringing the bell? Fine, fund him. Oh no, wait a minute, this guy's mentioned a war crime. Right, no money for him. Which is why none of them mention any Russian war crimes. I don't know, I think this is very suspicious. Like, if this was a parasocial bro, he'd be all over it. Hi, Woes, can I have my NFT? You know, this it's incongruous. But no. Some guy gave him $200 a year before, never got in touch saying, can I have my NFT? Some guy gave him £3,000 3-4 days prior, never got in touch. Millennial's got to go out and find him. In the follow-ups, no one replies to him, by the way. Well, there's 2 replies about, you know, an unrelated matter about someone being unwell. But there's no one saying, hi, Woes, yeah, I love the show, it was great. Yes, here's I've DM'd you, here you go. No. So I don't know, you can draw your own conclusions. I've drawn mine. I'd be interested what you think in the comments. Okay, just a quick one, just to tag in at the end here. I think this video says it all, in all honesty, so I'll try and keep this as concise as possible. This is basically a video made a year or so ago saying, how come no one on Millennial talks about Russian involvement, you know, of the migrant traffic into Europe? Because they don't fucking talk about it. It unexists. It's just like Russian war crimes in Ukraine, just like the Bucha massacre, just like the population replacement, the massacres, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing in Mariupol. Just like all of it, just like the drone strikes against hospitals, markets, schools, etc., marshruta buses, that gets unexisted, and Russia's involvement in the migrant supply into Europe gets unexisted. Even though, like, they are literally all over it, not just in Belarus either. People probably know about the Belarus border, although you won't find out about it in the Dissident Right. But you know, they're involved with all these people smuggling networks. They're involved with the Albanians. They're involved with all these mafias. They're in Africa. You know, the Russian army, the Russian operations are in Africa, amping it all up. There's a guy on Twitter, you can go and follow him, Philip someone or other. He reports on this from Africa directly on what they're doing. Dissident Right unexist all this. Millennial Woes gets a £3,000 NFT at the end of his Millennial. I don't think these two facts are unrelated.
In the cold months, in the darkness of December, a light shines that defies the evil of our age, a light from another time.
Okay, just thought with this one, try and keep it as brief as possible. Just going to ask an open question regarding Millenniyule. The festival of chat, other words could be applied, that occurs at the tail end of December with Millennial Woes. Oh, there's just a lot that you could say about Millenniyule and the characters involved in it. I really am just going to try and step over that. So I believe is a term that Mr. Parvini is very fond of. So I'm going to employ his vernacular and step over that and just really posit a question regarding this year's Millennial, this great achievement, this great wonder of the modern world. And well, I'm just going to ask an open question because I've skimmed like parts of it, and I basically just look to see what they're saying about Ukraine. Basically, that's all I'm interested in at this point. I just want to see quite how deep the active measures river is flowing. Seems to me in the things that I've seen that it's been disappeared. They have disappeared the subject of Ukraine. I think Millennial, whether he had some guest who was doing his, I mean, this I could kind of rant about this, but I just can't be fucked, to be honest with you. There was some guest who apparently he's got wacky videos, and he did some wacky video, like someone's saying that they were going to have their testicles surgically removed and sent to Ukraine, and this is basically mocking like normies, you know, for caring about, like, you know, white women and children getting, you know, buried under fucking rubble in tower blocks that get bombed by, you know, the Russian drones, which the dissident right never report, never even mention, never even criticise, you know, the narrative, because they're obsessed about news narratives. They're obsessed about overanalyzing news narratives, but they don't go near that one. In this season's review, as it were, you know, none of them mentioned that, did they? Because they go through the sort of year. Let's talk about the year and all this stuff. But, you know, as I've said previously, you know, some drone strikes are more, you know, important than others. That's not the point of this video. Sorry, I am rambling. The point of this video is, at any point during Millennial, and I did count, I believe there's something in the region of 70 streams. Now, I believe these streams are approximately 90 minutes in length, on average. So I think it's probably fair to say there's maybe something like 110, 120 hours of chat, of dissident right, migrant obsessed, migration obsessed, great replacement obsessed chat. And yet now, this is an open question. Perhaps I'm wrong here. I do not believe at any one point in this year's festival of chat, other words could be applied, has anyone ever mentioned anything about Russia's role in facilitating weaponized third world migration, specifically from Africa in the West African republics, where they have basically puppet governments in their pocket, like New Friends, in places like Niger, Burkina Faso, the Congo, you know, all these rotten places. When they're wafting it up, as I've made a video previously, perhaps I'll tag it in at the end of this, you know, well, I'll stick the images in, I'm not going to labour the point here. Have they mentioned this fact? Have they mentioned the fact that, you know, Russia is using its Belarusian puppet, you know, to literally send wave after wave of third world migrants as a weaponized migration against the West? Have any of them mentioned these points? Have any of them mentioned, like, Wagner's role, wafting up these you know, corridors, facilitating it across the Med, all the money that's poured into this? Have any of them mentioned this fact? Okay, so this is a quick edit. This is a point I think I've missed in the first recording here. And this is just regarding the nature of this migration. This is state-sponsored weaponized migration. So there is an intention here. That intention is to cause destabilization in your enemy's territory. So in this case, Europe, the Anglosphere. So it's a little bit distinct. I mean, normally, like, organic migration is just kind of, you know, Iqbal and his friends, they just want to go and get a flat somewhere, and, you know, all the rest of it, want to get on the old welfare situation. I mean, that obviously is going to play a factor in you know, this migration as well. However, this political imperative, I believe, you know, this is the sort of thing they will talk about in their meetings they have with these West African you know, leaders. And I suggest suggestions will be made for them to empty out their prisons and, you know, send certain figures, you know, within their societies with an intention. You know, it's like what Cuba did, isn't it? They'll be emptying out the prisons and sending them north. So I would argue that it's even more pressing, this kind of migration, because that is the intent. To completely ignore that intent, well, I don't know, draw your own conclusion. I mean, I'm serious, like, every single episode, you know what I mean, every single stream, you know, they basically all talk about migration to some extent. There might be one or two where it's some, I don't know, author or something, but 90% of the time they'll talk about third world migration and how it's a bad thing and how it needs to be countered and all the rest of it. And yet this fact, they just ignore. It doesn't exist. If you watch Millennial as your sole news source, then you would have no idea what Russia is doing here, and which is, you know, attempting to flood Europe with hostile third world migrants. But it's been doing for probably over a decade, if not more, at this point. as I've pointed out, I think numerous times, if they are successful in the Ukraine that, you know, that these people hate so much, that Millennial Woes like sneers about when he does his little like, oh, the normies started to care about Ukraine, didn't they, after COVID? Yeah, I mean, that's the point when I saw him on some stream chuckling away at that, how cringe it was that people cared about these white women and children getting buried under fucking rubble, you know, towns getting completely fucking demolished, citizens being driven out, losing everything, losing family members, all the rest of it, and then that town getting filled full of fucking Tajiks. While he's chuckling about normies that might, you know, be driven to actually give a shit about that. Oh, I don't know, let's just knock that off. Otherwise I'll just go on. I don't like doing ranty videos. It's not worth it. Back to the original point at hand. Have any of these people at any point mentioned what Russia is doing? Now, if the answer is no, and I suspect it is, and again, I'm very open, stranger things have happened, I have been wrong numerous times in the past, and maybe I'm wrong on this. I don't believe any of the guests have at any point mentioned this fact. Now, the question that I would ask you is, why wouldn't they do that? Why would these group, 120 podcasts or 120 hours of podcasts here, and they're all obsessed about Western migration, why would none of them have mentioned the fact of Russia's role within this operation against the West? Why not? Why wouldn't they have mentioned the fact that there's literally fucking North Koreans, fucking Mongols, Africans, Indians, Syrians, people from all across the fucking Middle East, all across the African world, Venezuelans, Cubans, all the rest of it, they're all fucking in Russia as part of this literal Antifa operation, a denazification operation against nationalism within Ukraine, within the whitest country on earth. None of them have mentioned that fact either. They haven't talked about this fucking multiracial army containing fucking North Koreans and all the rest of them. That's disappeared too. So that fact has been disappeared from the conversation, from the 120 hours of conversations, and the fact that Russia's role in facilitating weaponized migration against the West is also strangely missing from the conversation. So the question I would ask, you know, and it is a genuine question, why wouldn't they talk about this? What's the reasoning? There you go. I mean, you can tell me in the comments if you like. I've got my ideas, but you know, you can tell me yours.